What happened to the Left Bank? The Left Bank formed in New York in 1965, featuring then teenage prodigy Brown as keyboardist and chief songwriter, and the soaring near falsetto lead vocals of Steve Martin, aka Steve Martin Caro, bassist Tom Finn, drummer George Cameron, and guitarist Jeff Winfield. Initially, the group made some recordings that were produced by Brown's father, Harry Lukovsky. As the group was germinating and working on their vocals, which had become their strength from the get-go, Michael Brown, who was classically trained on piano, was more of a classical player, and it sounded much more classical than some of the other guys' leanings were, which were rock music. The music started to gel together as both of those styles of music came together, and they started to collaborate, and they started working on songs together. The first two songs they started working on were I Haven't Got the Nerve and I've Got Something on My Mind. These are two great examples of the two different styles of music they came from. One is a little more rock, and one's got this Baroque feel to it. All of these guys were temperamental, and from the very get-go, they were not gelling well in the studio. There were a lot of arguments, and it took a lot to get these songs to the finished forms. When these recordings failed to interest companies and sign the band, the Left Bank broke up and Brown moved to California. A backing track for Walk Away Renee had already been completed, and the other members overdubbed vocals in Brown's absence. The song was released on Smash, a subsidiary of Mercury Records, and became a hit in 1966, and the musicians reunited to tour and continue recording. The inspiration for the song Walk Away Renee was a girlfriend that Tom Finn had brought to the sessions. Her name was Renee Fladen, and she hung around for a couple of weeks, and Michael Brown must have been very taken with her because not only did he write Walk Away Renee, but he wrote two other songs about her as well. One was called She May Call You Up Tonight, a co-write with Steve Martin, and the song that would become their second single, Pretty Ballerina. And Pretty Ballerina also had chart success, and a debut album was assembled around these two hit songs. Simply titled Walk Away Renee / Pretty Ballerina, the Left Bank's first full length was released in 1967, padding out their hit singles with 9 additional Baroque pop gems. They started touring and opened up for bands like the Beach Boys, the Mamas and the Papas, and the Association. Due to the ornate nature of their music, which often employed session musicians, the Left Bank's sound was difficult to reproduce on the road, and Brown wanted to concentrate on writing and recording while the rest of the musicians took to the road. A variety of guitarists as both session musicians and ostensible group members filled in and out of the lineup. Rick Brand, credited as the guitarist on the first album, actually plays on only one of the album's songs. Michael McKean later joined on guitar. McKean would later find fame as an actor, playing on shows like Laverne and Shirley, This Is Spinal Tap, and Better Call Saul. Adding fuel to the fire, Brown's bandmates wanted to oust his father as the act's manager. In early 1967, Brown went as far as to record a Left Bank single without them using vocalist Bert Summer. Once the single was released, Tom, George, and Steve hired a lawyer and they filed a suit against the secondary Left Bank. The original contract was with the entire 4 guys, with Steve, Tom, and George winning the lawsuit, and they were given full rights to the band name. That single and Suddenly didn't draw much attention, and for a brief time in September 1967, the original members were recording together again. After just one single called Desiree, Brown left for good. In late 1967, when Rick Brand left the band was now officially a 3-piece. Now, at this point, they're looking to add some other members to the band. Alan Merrill was approached, and he did a lot of rehearsing with the band, hoping to become a full-time member, but he didn't end up becoming a full-time member. He was the guy that eventually wrote the #1 hit for Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll. They brought the lyricist Tom Fair back in the band. He started playing some keyboards and guitar with them, not just providing lyrics. Most of the group's second album, The Left Banke 2, was recorded without Brown. While it still sported Baroque arrangements and contained some fine moments, Brown's absence was noticeable. This album featured backing vocals by a young Steven Tyler, who later became the lead singer of Aerosmith, and he was featured on the songs My Friend Today and Dark is the Bark. Despite the excellent production, instrumentation, and writing, the album didn't chart on the Billboard 200. Brown went on to work with the Baroque psych group Montage, which released some work in the late 1960s. He later teamed up to form Stories with vocalist Ian Lloyd and had a #1 hit with the project's 1973 single, Brother Louie. There were some confusing Left Banke related recordings over the next few years, although the band came to a halt in 1969 after the second album. Brown, Martin, and unknown musicians made a few recordings in late 1969, then oddly, the original group reformed for a fine early 1971 single on Buddha, which was called Love Songs in the Night, with 2x2 as the B-side, although the record itself was credited to Steve Martin. In 1972, producer Les Fradkin offered to produce the group for a project on Bell Records. The original group got back together to record new music in 1978, but Brown quit after just one day in the studio. The remaining members recorded an album's worth of recordings without Brown, which were shelved for years before surfacing under the title Strangers on a Train in 1986, which was issued by Relix Records. The Left Banke's cult following slowly grew over time, especially after the release of Mercury Records' 1992's There's Gonna Be a Storm, which collected the group's entire Smash Records catalog on one CD. Swedish musician Jens Lekman sampled I've Got Something on My Mind in his 2003 song Black Cab. Left Banke songs have been covered from a wide variety of artists, from Ricky Lee Jones, Susanna Hoffs, and Michael Sweet, to Richard Thompson and Alice Cooper. In 2010, two of the original members of the group, Tom Finn and George Cameron, staged a pair of Left Banke reunion shows at Joe's Pub in New York City. Joining them were vocalist Mike Fornatel, guitarist Paul Alves, bassist Charlie Cazalet, drummer Rick Reel, and keyboardist Mickey Finn and Joe McGinty. The Joe's Pub shows were a critical and popular success, and the new edition of the Left Banke gigged periodically over the next few years. In 2011, Sundays Records reissued Walkaway Renee / Pretty Ballerina and the Left Banke 2 on vinyl and CD, allowing the two albums to be heard in their original sequence since they fell out of print in the 60s. In April 2013, Michael Brown joined the new Left Banke on stage in New York City to perform Pretty Ballerina, and it was announced that Steve Martin had signed on to return as the group's lead vocalist on March 18, 2015. These reunions would sadly never come to be, as Brown died shortly after the news was shared. Over the next several years, the rest of the original band members would die with projects yet to be realized, with Cameron, Martin, and Finn all passing on between 2018 and 2020. And that's what happened to the Left Banke. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Give me some facts about the Left Banke that I failed to mention in this video, and let me know who I should do next on the channel. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.